Call the Shakopee City Council meeting for October 15th, 2024 to order, please. And if the clerk could take the roll call.
Councilmember Delaney.
Here.
Councilmember Whiting.
Here.
Councilmember Contreras.
Here.
Councilmember Lara.
Here.
Mayor Lehman.
Here. Item number 3, if you want to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Item number 4, approval of the agenda. Any changes to the agenda from staff or council? Wishes of council? Mr. Lara?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
Councilor Contreras. Discussion on the motion? Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 5, consent agenda. Any changes to the consent agenda? Mr. Whiting?
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second on the motion, Mr. Delaney. If Administrator Peterson would read the consent agenda, please.
5A, excuse me, 5A declares a vehicle as surplus property and authorizes its disposal from the police department. 5B adopts resolution R 2024-131, accepting work on the 2024 cured in place sewer pipelining project, sewer 23-001, and authorizes final payment. 5C adopts resolution R 2024-130, accepting work on the 2023 full depth pavement reconstruction and bituminous pavement rehabilitation projects, CIF 23-001, CIF 23-011, CIF 23-012, and CIF 23-013, and authorizing final payment. 5D adopts resolution 2024-132, approving application to the National Recreation and Parks Associations supporting healthy aging through Parks and Recreation program. And 5E approves change order number 1 to extend the completion date for the Canterbury Commons internal roadway improvements.
Thank you. Any questions or discussion on the motion?
Nope, we're good.
Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. And thank you, Administrator. Item number 6, public comment. If you are here tonight for an item that is not on our agenda, now would be the time to step up and let us know what's on your mind. Is there anybody here that would like to address the City Council on an item not on the agenda? Anybody? No? Okay. Item number 7, business removed from consent agenda. We have none. Item number 8A, public hearing. Assessment of delinquent refuse bills for Dick Sanitation. Public hearing. A motion to open a public hearing.
I'll make the motion to open the public hearing.
Is there a second?
I'll second. Oh, go ahead. One of us seconds it.
Who's the second? Mr. Whiting?
I'll take it.
Mr. Whiting is the second. Discussion on the motion? Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. The public hearing is now open. Mr. Reinhardt.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Tonight we have a public hearing on delinquent refuse bills. The city's designated garbage hauler is DSI. This process we go through once a year allows us to certify these charges to the property owner's property taxes. Per previous city council actions and our agreement with DSI, the city council has authorized the collection of delinquent garbage accounts in the city's organized collection area. Reference to the city ordinance is up on the slide here, but per city ordinance, the charges are the responsibility of the property owner. As a result, this has eliminated the need for the service provider to stop services on delinquent accounts. This ensures that there's no interruption in service, which could lead to a higher level of illegal dumping of trash. DSI provided the city with a list of delinquent garbage assessments that covered delinquent accounts that were greater than 60 days past due as of August 31st. Last year, we made some changes in the process based on city council and property owner feedback, DSI is now sending the collection letters and notices, as well as collecting the payments until the city is required to provide the final assessment list to the county. This has created a simpler and more streamlined process and has reduced the confusion for the customers having all the collections now done by DSI, which has also substantially reduced our staff time involved with the process. I do have two slides here, one with the original assessment list that was provided with us, and then the next slide will be a comparison of the current assessment list. So comparable data as of the time we set the public hearing, which was back on September 17th. In comparison to the previous year's assessments, both the number of properties and the dollar amounts were higher, about 70 more accounts. This would have been back on September 17th when we set the public hearing. Then fast forward to today. Actually, this listing would have been of last Wednesday. Our updated list contains 179 properties totaling $31,160. Since September 17th, DSI has been able to collect about 271 payments. In total, this compares to the previous fall hearing last year of 95. Totaling 17,000, and then in 22, prior to the process changes, 275, totaling 39,000. So I think the changes we have made to the process has been pretty successful, and DSI has done a good job collecting even since we set this public hearing. And just wanted to mention from this chart, in comparison to last year, it does look like there is an uptick, but last year we had our public hearing date in November. We actually had published error in the public notice and pushed that meeting off an extra into the November. So that might explain why there is a little bit more at this point in time. The process. So following the approval of delinquent assessments, property owners would have until November 15th to pay the assessment interest-free. Payments will still be processed to DSI up until that point. Following that, the assessments will bear an interest rate of 6% plus a $25 administrative service charge, which is added to each of the accounts. The administrative service charge covers the costs associated with assessing the delinquent accounts, and the city will provide that assessment roll to the county, and it'll be applied to next year's taxes, and it'll show up on a property owner's property tax statement. It is staff's recommendation to adopt the assessment roll. So the remaining actions tonight is to accept public input, a motion to close the public hearing, and then council consideration of resolution 2024-128, which is a resolution ordering certification of unpaid refuse bills for collection with payable 2025 property taxes. Staff has not received any written objections. And then again, this assessment list would have been as of last Wednesday. DSI will provide us with a new list prior to us sending that into the county and that $25 charge being added.
Thank you, sir. Questions of staff? Questions? I just make two points. This is for services that they've received, right? And because of our policy of a closed system, it's not they don't really have a choice. They have to receive these services, although they have choices within the service, sizes, stuff like that. Okay, let's see. So it is a public hearing, so let's see if there's anybody in the audience that'd like to address us on this matter. It is a public hearing. If you're here to speak on the certifying assessments for delinquent refuge bills, now would be the time to step forward and be heard. Is there anybody here that would like to address us on this matter? Seeing none, wishes of council. Ms. Lara?
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion and a second. Discussion on the motion. Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes. Public hearing is closed. Mr. Whiting.
Make a motion to adopt Resolution R 2024-128, certifying the assessments for delinquent refuse bills.
Is there a second?
I'll second it. Oh.
Motion by Mr. Whiting, seconded by Ms. Contreras. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes. Takes us to public hearing item 8B, assessment hearing on delinquent fire, police alarms, and mowing services. Ms. Contreras,
Make the motion to open this public hearing.
is there a second?
I'll second.
By Contreras, seconded by Lara. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion passes. Public hearing is open. Mr. Reinhardt.
So this is our second public hearing tonight for, this is for unpaid bills for city services, which for this year includes one false police alarm and 3 lawn mowing charges. Total amount of these charges is $456. Oops, I'll go to the next slide here. I have provided a listing with the council packet, and we have not received any additional payments since that was provided. This is a process, again, we go through once a year to certify unpaid charges to the property owner's property taxes as allowed by Minnesota Statute 429. Following approval of the delinquent assessments, again, a $25 administrative service charge will be added to these accounts, which covers the cost of processing these delinquent accounts and assessing them. Property owners will have until November 15th to pay the assessment interest-free. Following that, the assessments will bear an interest rate of 6%. We will provide a second letter notifying of the property owners of their assessment following what happens tonight. Staff is recommending certifying the assessments for the delinquent bills. So the same steps as the last one, receive public comments during this public hearing, a motion to close the public hearing, and then council consideration of Resolution 24-129, which is a resolution ordering the certification of unpaid false alarms and mowing bills for collection with payable 2025 property taxes. Staff has not received any written objections.
Thank you, sir. Questions of staff? Mr. Lara?
I just have a question. So for the mowing, what has to happen? What steps take place for us to go out and mow their lawn?
I'll try to answer that the best I can, although I'm not necessarily involved completely with that process, but I believe they do anything they can to contact the property owner. I believe they leave a door tag. I'm not quite sure. Sometimes I get it a little confused with the last city I was at, but anything they can to get the property owner to obviously comply with ordinance of tall grass. And if a certain period of time passes, and I'm not sure again what that time frame is, whether it's 30 or 60 days, then they will do the mowing themselves. And we have a third party that does that on the behalf of the city.
I think it's typically a lot longer than the 4 inches that the ordinance states, so by the time we get out there and mow it.
In at least one case that I recognize an address, sometimes they're an estate where, the person has passed or moved to assisted living or something, and the family is either not local or maybe they don't have a family or whatever the case is, and nobody's there to maintain it and take care of it. And the process really can't move forward on the property until it goes through the system. So you've got this period of time where if there's somebody that's not doing the maintenance, then that's when we would step up and try to contact somebody. And if we can't, then we want to, keep the neighborhood not in total disarray. Any other questions of staff? Nope. I had one other one. This is the first time I've seen where they call it a police alarm. Usually it's a fire alarm.
A burglar alarm, I guess. But,
was that a burglar alarm? You probably don't know.
Basically be any alarm system that would have been activated.
fire alarm.
Yeah, and so I believe you have there's 3 false alarms you can have, and the 4th one, I believe, is the one that we begin charging. So there's obviously some leadway there, so if you had 1 false alarm, you're not going to get a bill for it.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Any other questions of staff? Seeing none? Okay, this is a public hearing. If there's anybody in the audience that would like to address the city council on this matter in our public hearing, now would be the time to do that. Is there anybody here that would like to address council on this matter? Last call. Wishes of council? Ms. Contreras?
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Delaney. Discussion on the motion? Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Public hearing is closed. Councilor Contreras.
I'll make a motion to hold public hearing and adopt resolution R 2024. Do we still have to hold another one? No.
Nope,
It's
just
okay.
adopt the resolution.
So adopt resolution R 2024-129, certifying assessment for delinquent fire, police, false alarms, and mowing bills.
Is there a second to that motion? Mr. Delaney? Is there a discussion on the motion? Any discussion? All in favor, Mr. White? No. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Reinhardt.
One more.
Item 9A, monthly financial report.
Good evening again, Mayor and council members. This actually works out great. Don't even have to move, just having all the agenda items. So. But tonight I'll be covering our monthly financial review through September, as well as the third quarter investment report. Probably familiar with this slide. You've probably seen this chart before, but shows the general fund through September, so 75% of the way through the year. The 2024 budget column has been adjusted for the budget amendments that council approved on July 2nd. For revenues, we are at 67% of total revenues. Taxes will remain below budget target until we receive our second half property tax settlement in December. The other area that we are below is intergovernmental. Most of that revenue is received in October, and actually we received it already in October, so most of that is just timing as well. There are two areas of revenues that we're seeing ahead of budget targets. That would be building permit revenues, which are slightly down from last year, but still far ahead of budget targets. We have already exceeded our full year of budget expectations. And then the other one is miscellaneous, which includes our interest earnings on investments, which has also exceeded the full year budget expectations. That miscellaneous does not include an adjustment for market value, which will occur at year end, which I'll talk about on the next couple slides. On the expenditure side, in total, we're at 70% of the full year budget. The three departments that were exceeding their budget targets by 10% or greater was the finance department. We do pay for our full year of assessment, contract, and audit services at the start of the year. So by the end of the year, we do expect that to be in line with budget. Planning and development includes professional services related to the National Historic Registry. The city did receive a grant of $77,500 from the Minnesota Historical Society that covers a significant portion of that cost. However, we'll likely be over budget by the end of the year related to the city cost share of that. And then for buildings inspection, that would include the annual software costs for the full year. So that is partially a timing thing, as well as a building official that's paid through from a state building official grant. So we anticipate that that'll be near the budget allocation for the full year, if not within. So I included the full investment report in your packet, third quarter investment report, but this just kind of high level. This slide shows the interest earnings for the third quarter in comparison to the previous 4 years. The pinkish line being 2024. We were at about $2 million through the third quarter, which is where we ended up for the full year last year, then considerably ahead of where we've been the previous 4 years, as we've been able to sort of take advantage of the higher interest rates. And then this final slide is that unrealized gain or market adjustment that we do at year end. Again, the pink line being 2024, and in comparison to the previous 4 years. Last year we had a pretty significant gain due to the downward shift in interest rates, and so far in 2024 rates have been flat and now are starting to come down. So we're seeing a pretty significant unrealized gain again here in 2024. It's at about 2.1 million right now. We do intend to hold investments until maturity, and then again, it's recorded once a year on December 31st. Market's still indicating that rates would come down a little bit further. If so, then we'd have even a larger unrealized gain for 2024. With that, I can stand for any questions you might have.
Questions of staff?
We're doing good.
Mr. Reinhardt, it would be a good timing to point out the policy on investment. Safety, what was the other one?
Yeah, I'll actually pull it up just so I don't screw it up.
Liquidity.
So within our investment policy, we actually have the acronym in there, SLI, which stands for Safety, Liquidity, and Yield. Obviously, being a city, we're pretty restricted on what we can invest in per state statutes. It's even more restricted by our own city policy. But obviously, protecting our the cities, cash and investments is number one, and making sure we have enough to meet our needs, number two, and then yield would be the third most important thing.
Thank you, sir. No action is required. Any questions from council? No. All righty, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Reinhardt.
Yep.
All right, here they come.
Item 10A, emergency management tabletop exercise.
Oh, we're swarmed.
Site facilitator and our police and fire department staff.
You're out of here, huh? That's right.
We want to start the billing on you until 8 o'clock, so we're.
I think we can call it a quarter hour here.
You know, you showed up 15 minutes late.
Yeah, it's that. Thank you.
We love you.
You too.
Mr. Thomas. We're just teasing you. All right.
All right. Mayor, council, good evening. I'm going to have a few words here before I pass the baton to Greg Hayes, who will have you for the next 3 hours to go through this exercise. I am kidding. It has been a while, though. Councilor Whiting, I think you asked us a few months ago to come up with one, and we had talked about a train derailment. Obviously timely, there were several in the state, and we're no stranger to train issues here in Shakopee. So Dave and Fred have worked hard putting a presentation together tonight. They are 2 of the 8 people in our city who are state emergency management certified. I think that's important to point out. That's a healthy number. That's redundancy. That's succession planning that helps ensure us. That is not, you've heard me say this before, that is not a certification that you go in on Monday and you come out Friday with that certification. That takes all of 2 years, and it's a lot of work. And to have 8 people, and hopefully we continue to grow that number and have that training and expertise in the city. We are going to have a facilitator, Greg Hayes, tonight. I think that's important for a couple reasons. I've known Greg for a long time. We've been out at Emmitsburg together doing some tabletops ourselves on emergency management stuff. Greg is a subject matter expert. I think dealing with elected officials. He has gone through these tabletop exercises with elected officials, county boards, several times. I doubt there's a question you're going to come up with in terms of roles and responsibilities that he has not seen or heard. So I think that's a different perspective, a fresh perspective to bring into when you get somebody who trains around the country that is going to come in and again, share his expertise, walk you through some things in terms of roles and responsibilities, and then we'll get into the exercise. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Greg. He can introduce himself a little bit more to you, and we'll get this thing rolling.
All right. Should be on there. Better let technology give me just a second to get this up. And
Which screen will we be on? These two?
Yeah.
We'll find out. He's new here.
Well, I'm going to pick one here.
all right. Well, piggyback on what the chief was talking about. Where do I kind of come from? This is my 33rd year in public safety. I've been through pretty much all the disciplines, including public health. Do a lot of training and education in the EM world. Currently work for a group that is called the Metropolitan Emergency Services Board, which is a joint powers that in my years, up until working there 3 years ago, I didn't know what it did. I had no clue what this MESB was, and I was actually on a couple of the committees. The MESB, the Joint Powers, was formed in the 80s, and it was for our radios and 911 system. So as Shakopee sees growth, and there's new addresses or parcel data, that will be our GIS specialists will look at that, make sure that all the parcel data lines up, and then it goes over to Scott County, and then they ensure when somebody dials 911, all the data's matching where it needs to be. So when Shakopee PD, Shakopee Fire, a line that goes to those calls, they're pointed in the right direction. There's 3 subject matter experts, one in charge of radios, one in charge of 911, and the other one is EMS, and I'm the EMS kind of quasi also public safety person. The board itself, we have an executive director, but we report to, of the 10 counties, it's 2 county commissioners that represent our board, including City of Minneapolis president. And so that's what makes us up. That's the political tie. That's the piece I didn't know until I was working there and going, okay, who's the bosses? And my boss like, oh, we have 21 politicians. I'm like, okay, I hadn't thought about that before, where it comes from. So their whole focus at the MESB and the board is that we do exercise, we do tabletops, we get agencies together to work collaboratively in a term you're going to hear tonight called Unified Command. And how do we manage these types of disasters? All disasters are at the local level. So this is, Shakopee is the incident commander. I'll talk about, as we go and get into these objectives here, I'm going to talk about what are the basic principles of emergency management. I'll also move around the room so I'm not talking behind you the entire time. I kind of feel bad about this. We're going to look at what are some of the complexities of a specific incident in this tabletop. We're going to look at how do we work through the declaration of emergency. This is a big one for how is it that we start to handle this. Whether it's a train derailment, which we picked in this scenario, but it can also be the tornado. It can be other things. Why would we do a declaration and who gets to do that? And maybe deconflict some piece there. Also talk about what levels of assistance would come in this type of incident. And then look at the incident action plan. Over here with public safety, the public safety is going to create what's called an IAP. And it is what we're doing in given operational periods. And that's an important step. Some of it's already pre-planned. It's already an agency policy. When they show up, they're going to do some things that gets them through the first couple hours, and 99% of the time we solve our problems in those times. And these ones that we're going to talk about tonight get a little bit more complex, so they have to do some more planning. We aren't going to dive into the details. We're not going to get into all of the tactics and strategy of the why. The focus of this is to focus on the strategic, more policy level. So here at the beginning, we'll just talk about, what the exercise design. I'm going to slide over here. Sorry, Fred. Is looking at, we're going to give you a scenario, then we're going to discuss it openly, and look at how would we manage this, and then what are some of those critical decision points? We're not going to solve all of the questions today. There may be more questions, and due to not the 3 hours, but the hour or probably 55 minutes now we have for me, is I'm going to try to keep you on track. It doesn't mean we can't jot questions down, circle that back, and get some clarification. And so with that is looking at what is it that our uniformed staff, fire and PD needs to go through. And it's called the National Incident Management System. That system is founded in getting us to work together. That system focuses on what policy group level decisions, what command group level decisions, and what coordination group. Policy group are my councils and electeds, whether they're at the state, whether at the federal, or at the local level. The command group is the incident commander and those on site, inside of a command post, commanding tactics and strategy. They are dealing with the problem. Coordination group is supporting, who's going to help us. Those 3 groups are very distinct, and they're very purposeful. And getting the wheels to turn is getting into those right buckets. Is to say, okay, policy level decisions, I need to be here. Command level decisions need to be here. And so we'll talk about that because things like EOCs come up, and the county's EOC, where do they fit? And how does all those pieces come together? But if as we go, you think about those 3 groups, you've now completed at least a whole bunch of hours in the National Incident Management System. If you get that, and if you've got unified command, that's really what they're trying to teach. That's what this command structure that we spend hours and days and weeks going through at our level to facilitate the best response that we can, knowing that we're handed a lot of challenges. So incident locations, things that you'll hear. You'll hear this incident command post. The incident command post is on site. It is where my commanders are at. If I was a chief with a 1 on my badge, I might be in the command post, or I might not be. Because I have captains, lieutenants, battalion chiefs that might be running the incident because a person with a 1 on their badge or their helmet at times needs to also bridge to policy.
and I need to help coordinate with them. And so the incident command post is tactics and strategy. An emergency operations center is support. So command happens inside of an incident command post. Coordination happens inside of an EOC. Question comes up from time to time. We'll use the county. County has an emergency manager. They stand up their EOC, and the emergency manager's in the EOC doing, saying, all right, I'm the county's emergency manager. And what's Scott's role? It's coordination only. Command, in this case, would be Shakopee. So at a command post. Coordination is all those support elements. So the commanders here would say, hey, I need X. My job as an emergency manager is to get them X and predict Y. And I don't mean why they need it, but what's coming next? What's our commanders going to need? The Joint Public Information Center is another key one, and I would tell you in this case, for what we're going to say, it's the #1 policy issue. Dealing with another after action today, at the state level with commissioners, dealing with a hazmat issue that we had in August, and I'm not from the state, they just said, hey, from the outside, can you help facilitate it? Their #1 issue is joint public information. And luckily in their case, not a lot of people got whipped up over it. It was not a lot of social media flying about why, there's this sheen on the river and it looks bad and what's going on and why aren't people helping. And what actions are taken. That didn't light up because luckily in their case it was the same day as the DNC. And so one media event overshadows the other one. Joint public information, and so their after action was, hey, we have to get ahead of that. And who is a part of that? And then we have a department operations center. In public health, many times you hear of this term, not so much in public safety, and it's how are we going to maintain continuity of operations, our operations within the city? Because we still have a job to do. We still have people dialing 911. We still have those other incidents going on. So how do we have an emergency group, that incident command group running the incident, and then how are we staffing the day-to-day incidents that are happening on the other side of town? All right, so that's NIMS 100 through 400. That takes a long time to get in roughly 10 minutes or less, to be honest with you. If you get that.
Let me ask a question.
Yes, sir.
Who here on council has any NIMS certifications? Okay. I think I have like 3 different ones. Single incident, national incident, and I can't remember what the third one was. I think it was logistics,
It's
staging.
good, and they're good to go through the onlines. I'm not going to say they're the most stimulating thing we've ever done. I'm really not going to promise that. But it helps you understand what's, from our policy group, what's going on in the command group. So it is good education. So with that, let's just jump right into the tabletop. What we're here for. So exercise assumptions. So play through it, talk as if it were real. All the resources that the city would have on any given day, whether they're law enforcement, whether they're fire, whether they're public works, whatever it is that you use, that's what you have on a given day. I'm not going to say the weather's the same because I don't know what the weather is right now and which way is the wind direction on this. So I'm forcing a weather in a certain direction. But I would say if it's the temperatures it's been the last 2 days, it would not help this problem. The lower temps, train derailments and lower temps can be a little bit more problematic. We'll talk and facilitate through the National Incident Management System. We're going to talk about where does the EOC kind of stand up, just so we know how we can support. And then there are no tricks. So there is no, hey, gotcha moment. But what I will tell you is that to keep us on our timeline, I'm not gonna sit here and stump, the fire chiefs. Okay, tell me what the ideal age and the specific gravity of it is. I'll tell you, ideal age is 300 and this is 0.6, so it's gonna float on one of the 2 chemicals. So it is the current date and time. It's tonight, as we see, and now we respond. Shakopee PD and Shakopee Fire respond to 101 and 83 for a semi that hit a train. The semi, at the time, witnesses reported that the semi was accelerating when it hit the train. Multiple cars have derailed. Now, I want to be clear here, because this is where we can run off the rails as a group. The investigative phase of this as to why the semi ran into the train is, we're not going to simulate that tonight. what we're going to talk through is there's a train derailed, there's some chemicals that are leaking, the semi, for whatever reason, because that can be a whole host of reasons. I know in my case, seeing that, and I've had semis that end up in the ditch, and you had a driver in cardiac arrest. And so there's a lot of the why, and all of us going, okay, why did this semi hit the train? We're not going to. That's not what we're focusing on.
Conspiracies.
We want to. Yeah. Well, we just want to focus on what are the decision points, and so the size of it. First arriving law enforcement and fire report semi versus train with multiple cars derailed. The semi is on fire. Unknown victims. No one has come out of the semi. Train was impacted in the middle section of the cars, derailing 6 cars with 3 leaking and on fire. Additionally, a white cloud is coming from another rail car. 4 cars are placarded with 1987. There's no tricks here. I'll define what those numbers are. Unless I want to test your fire chief, he should know the next one. 2 cars are 1,005. So, what you have going, the scenario is the 1987, layman's terms, it's flammable. Thus, there's your fire. What does that require these guys to do? When large tanks are on fire, which book are you going to?
ERG.
Thank you, sir. You're not testifying, by the way.
Yeah.
A little more relaxed when you ask questions. And so what does ERG stand for? You can use a lifeline to your brain.
The emergency response
There we
guy.
go, sir. All right. Is that the emergency response guidebook gives us some generic language. What it's going to tell you for 1987 is that if the tank cars are on fire, or if it is impinging under their tank cars, you need to evacuate for 1 mile in all directions. There's 2 terms, evacuate or shelter in place. We hear shelter in place a lot. This says evacuate. And if things say evacuate, it's a shall. That's 1 mile in all directions. I'll have some circles on the map here for you. The second one is anhydrous ammonia. That is your white cloud. All right. What is anhydrous ammonia? And I'm looking to my subject matter expert, your fire chief. We might have been on an incident, the 2 of us, on one of these. Is it toxic? Good. Okay, it's not good. Toxic, yes? Toxic, yes. Yes, okay. And will it harm people in very low doses? Yes, it will. Perfect. Once again, you're not testifying, but I do appreciate the short answers. And so we have a toxic and we have a flammable. If you look at Ohio, what happened in Ohio, which this has, that's where when Fred and I put this together, is we wanted to simulate that, but we're not using as bad of chemicals. So we're not going to deal with the environmental offshoot. But this is going to force some critical thinking. And so with that is when we look at, I want to get your first impressions. Now that I've given you the size up, I told you what all the chemical research is we're going to go down is looking at from our public safety to city staff to council. What are your thoughts? So I'll first look at my commanders. What would be your initial thoughts?
Wanting to know what the placards are, looking at in the emergency response guide and figuring out wind direction and how we can evacuate, what we need to evacuate. We would be linking up fire, EMS, and police for a unified command.
Can you, unified command, what is that? What is that?
So all of your specialties, I guess, and public safety for the most part are in the same command post. Like I said, PD or law enforcement, fire, EMS, we could even bring in public works and other disciplines to work with us, because we all need to be speaking the same language, we all need to be working through the same incident, and we all need to be together so we can ask questions and direct staff the most efficient way possible and help get resources.
On the fire side, what would you guys be doing?
Most likely focusing on containment and evacuation as well. Not trying to isolate the event to make it so it's better, not escalating to make it worse. Obviously, cooling cars and firsthand dealing with that, but then a massive part of it is dealing with the evacuation and that area with the industry in there, that we don't create other problems with our glass facility, paper facility, and stuff like that, because we can't just shut those down at a moment's notice.
Okay. Strategically, that's what, once they form the unified command and they have a command post set up, which command post doesn't have to be some fancy thing. It can be a squad car with 2 people in it managing a fire engine, a fire chief's car. We put our stake in the ground saying here's a command post. In this case, where is their command post going to be? Somewhere near the site.
Where the wind's not blowing.
Not downwind, hopefully. Hopefully we're upwind on this thing, which is going to put us closer to Valley Fair than it will be to downtown Shakopee. And the important thing for both the policy, the coordination group is where can I find my decision makers, i.e. command post. And that's not just on this incident, that's every incident of what they've taught us in the NIMS side. So city staff, few city staff, what are your thoughts at this point?
Well, we got to figure out where our people are, and if we need to get them back here somewhere else so we can get those decision makers in the room, we need to make sure you guys are informed and you know what's going on. We got to be putting together public statements because with you guys, obviously, but we're taking care of those logistical pieces so you guys can focus on.
So looking at, do we need to contact city staff to pull them back? Because it is, we'll use current date and time, so 7 something right now, 20 to 8. How do we get a hold of those people? And all those decisions are triggered off of who?
Get a phone call from someone.
Yeah, yeah. And it's, all right, we need to link and connect with our command group. Who typically on a day-to-day, who's your link?
Typically, one of these guys will call either the city administrator or myself, depending on who's in town, and we kind of disperse from there.
And a lot of times that's why you get a lot of questions when you do this. Wait a minute, why is, like in this case, why are my 2 chiefs not sitting at the command table? Because they have the bridge to ensure, as a commander, as a chief officer, if I get too into an incident like this, which I'm going to tell you I would love to be, because this is my jam, so to speak, I will probably miss the communications part because I'll be too into tactics. And it's how we now have learned how to pull back into those boxes. Policy group, command group, coordination. All right, city council. What information would you want at this point?
I'm still wondering what happened to the truck driver.
That's a good question. So, okay, now we're going to talk about the difficult part of response. Given the size and scope of that, I'll answer the question, is we may not even have the opportunity to go after the truck driver.
I know what's going on, the situation is.
Yeah, it'll depend on if we can get close, if that semi's on fire, and those tanks. Because we have to weigh risk versus reward with our response.
Well,
Super difficult.
and the impacts of resources and the larger impacts. I mean, you've got a cloud that's moving, that's dangerous. With the information that I've got so far, my mind is thinking, we're gonna need some help. Obviously, we've got to reroute traffic. We've got to set up a perimeter of a mile all the way around, maybe larger in the direction this thing is headed. We've got containment happening. So we've got a lot of things going right off the bat and not knowing, from the command post on site, are they going to be running out of, I don't know, foam or whatever you guys need to do the job? What resources are they going to need immediately? What resources might they need a little bit later? And how do we start thinking about lining these things up so that they can do their function successfully?
All right, I'm going to go back to my command group for a second. What resources do you have at your fingertips any given day right now if this should occur, and hopefully I'm not forecasting that?
We got about 7 officers and a patrol supervisor on.
Okay, whole bunch of people. Where do you go for more resources?
Ask dispatch to find us more, whether it's surrounding agencies or Scott County and
Mutual aid.
Mutual aid.
On the hazmat side specifically, fire, what's your procedure?
Hopkins, calling the state duty officer, requesting a CAT team.
And
Did you say Hopkins?
Yeah, the state hazmat for our area is housed out of Hopkins. So we call the state duty officer and they align that. No different than if we're calling dispatch requesting like prior to come.
Used to be that old, in the old days, it was that orange truck that sent out with all the equipment.
yeah, they're all big and white. So in the case of what Chief Giddings is talking about, call the state duty officer. So we're actually triggering some state resources, which I'm going to get to about a step that we need to think about as policy. And that triggering is going to get Hopkins for sure, but you probably, just to level set expectations, you're going to see Hopkins, you're going to see North Metro, which is Minneapolis and Fridley, you're going to see St. Paul, and you're probably going to get Mankato. You will, on something of this size, I know that the state teams coordinator at the fire marshal's office is going to take all of his chips and push them in because of the population around. And what do they bring to the table? Monitoring. Monitoring is where I can see how much of that chemical is down, as what they'll call downrange. So I'll be able to say, is it bad, or can we stay? Do I need to evacuate, or can they stay here?
Or does that 1 mile perimeter extend to 2 where it's moving toward?
Good, yeah.
Change of wind, yeah.
What, on a policy level, what can I do to help with resources? Once they've expended, they've got the people. So we need more of.
It depends on the resources. I
It's
mean,
open checkbook, closed mouth, I think, kind of like the daughter's wedding thing.
I mean, a lot of the resources, and we don't know exactly what they need at this point. So, you're going to have other entities besides what you named there. You're going to have the Mid-Wacaton there. You're going to have Prior Lake there. You're going to have all our surrounding communities that always come help us out.
They'll be first call, more or less.
And,
you know.
and we help them too. So they may have some of these things that they might need. I don't know that, but, and if they don't, where do we procure this stuff?
A duty officer would help that
There are
coordinator.
definitely for more resources. They can mobilize teams and get us outstate agencies. That would be our resource to use to get more resources.
So now we need to be thinking about how do we pay for it, and we got to start tracking what we're bringing in, what we're spending, and because it might go to a level of declared emergency where
sure.
some of these funds might be released from other entities to help offset.
So what is an emergency declaration in your mind? And who can do it?
Well, when you're calling the duty officer and bringing in St. Paul, and they're seeing it as an emergency, so it probably is an emergency at that point. Right?
So the part of that, in a lot of cities, you have an emergency operations plan for the city, which I think is awesome. A lot of cities your size don't, because they're like, hey, the county will take care of us. And the county will, but the county's focus is the county. It's focused on, like if I have a tornado that hits 4 different spots of the county's looking at those 4 different spots, and if they prioritize Credit River Township more than Shakopee, guess who's number 2 on the list for cleanup? It's going to be Shakopee. And so a lot of cities.
Well, but in fairness, they might be focusing on Credit River because they have less resources.
Very true.
Than Shakopee would. So they need the county's resources more than Shakopee would because Shakopee is bigger and has more resources available.
In this case, it's the city of Shakopee. And
The mayor
so,
can declare that emergency, correct? The mayor would do that?
very good. That's where I'm driving this to. In your emergency operations plan, in accordance with Chapter 12, which is the state statute for emergency management, the mayor can declare an emergency for a period of time, 3 days, and then we have to get the council together to either rescind or ratify that. And what you're saying, let me back up. In your mind, what does a declaration of emergency get you? And it's okay not to know, and it's not stump to chump. It's cutting through what we see or what we think is going to happen to really what to level set expectations.
The checkbook?
Okay,
Partially.
yes, it's partial.
But it does a couple of things. First, I think it's probably your most basic of communication information that people would get, whether it's the state duty officer or any other agencies that are involved, including Scott County. So first, it's a communication. You're letting everybody know that, yeah, we have a situation here. We know about it. You don't have to. We don't need 1,000 people calling us, telling us that we have this problem over here. We're saying we know we had this. We have this problem here, right? Second, it opens us up for a lot of assistance from, as you said, the state, the CAT team, and other entities that have specialized focus in this.
Do we need that for the duty officer? That's immediate, right? That's immediate action, yeah.
In this emergency, so it opens you up for all these specialty type things that could come into play to help with that specific emergency. And I think the third thing it does is it starts the process of documentation, which we learned at the scale training, that you want to keep tabs on what's happening, not necessarily on the ground, boots on the ground, what they're doing, but the policy and the financial and the equipment resources.
And so, yeah, all are 100% correct. On the policy group side and the city side, the best thing you can do is get your finance person on the horn. First one, okay, I need a spreadsheet. Get me a spreadsheet and start tracking costs from second one, because the command group, in order to do their job, is going to consume some pretty expensive resources. Now, we'll sidebar for a second that we have two responsible parties. In Minnesota State statute for hazmat, you get to bill a responsible party back. Whether it's the insurance company for the semi-truck or the rail, I don't care. One of those two are going to be responsible, if not both. So we start tracking those expenses. But one of the challenges, or one of the pieces that we run into, the command group needs for the support is, some of the things we need to order are fairly expensive. What could I as a city administrator, what's my spending authority level? Without RFP, going out and asking, hey, and getting 3 bids, I don't have the time for 3 bids. That's one of the key pieces that a declaration of emergency lifts, is some of our processes. I will also say, from a policy group, good to have a system of checks and balances, because you don't want to, we don't want to have hey, how much have we spent so far? And now we say like $3 million. That would be a bit shocking if I was in the policy seat going, okay, I didn't expect that. And so it's important to think early on from a policy group is, hey, declaration of emergency, I can rescind it at any time, but we're really saying, hey, we have an emergency. Would I do this on the day-to-day incidents in Shakopee? A homicide? No, that wouldn't be it. But it opens up the window to help. The mayor gets to do it. Underneath Chapter 12, and the other piece is when we say we have an emergency, there's a statewide mutual aid. That's what they call it, 12.331. And that you don't have a mutual aid agreement with some other department that's coming from 70 miles away. This will help solve some of the tort, if there's a tort claim or
And when they might have a specialty that we really want.
Yep, or it could just be law enforcement or fire trucks. Becker's Metals Fire is a good example from a bunch of years ago, being deployed on that. So with that, we're going to push forward, but things to think about as to the why. We kind of already talked about this. So we talked about the critical incident locations and where people should be. We haven't talked about joint information, and we're going to get to that. But in this case, what I would see unified command post of some sort, whatever that looked like. There's probably going to be an EOC stood up. Whether it's at the city level, you're going to be challenged from a staffing perspective to try to get one up and operating. And it may just be City Hall's our EOC. We have city staff helping. But the county's EOC, which needs to be brought in, they're a resource coordination function, not a command function. Then you have the council chambers, or wherever the council chooses to meet, and then joint public information, which is typically done from here with a tie to the command post. In a case like this is very normal of what these stand up pretty quick. And as I said at the beginning, it's getting everybody into there so we can make
the key decisions to keep moving the process forward. So we're going to step forward now, and I am going quick. I promise you I'm going quick, so I want to make sure I maintain on my time goal. The Unified Command Group identifies that the white cloud with a pungent odor, 1005, that's ammonia. Injuries, semi-driver, and our council member cared about him, so we're giving you the update. Unfortunately, it's not positive here. Pinned and anti-cedilling. Nothing we can do for him or nothing Cruz could do, so Cruz backed away due to the growing fire. That's going to happen with those flammable cars. Alignment at St. Francis are reporting hundreds with chemical exposure symptoms. I'm going to look over to my experts in the blue. Would that be due to the fire or due to the toxic? It's the anhydrous. Anhydrous is going to burn your nose, your eyes. Obviously, farm country, you know when you smell it. And so now what's command seeing? An uptick in EMS.
What's the question?
No, I'm just letting you know what that injury is medical is that there's an uptick in EMS because the tie with Alina, who's going to be tied to St. Francis. And so that's going to trigger some regional coordination. The train, the rail company duty officers notified, they're dispatching resources to assist. Company executives were also notified and beginning to prepare a statement. So your rail company is starting to prepare a statement. And then the community. Of course, public's going to arrive around the derailment because we always want to get our 15 minutes of fame on Instagram. And local media is going to go live coverage on this faster than we can probably write a statement.
Didn't we have a 1 mile containment set up?
Okay, very good question. In the ERG, there would be a 1 mile containment. What I would tell you in real life, one of the hardest things you could ever do. Why would that be a challenge to my Unified Command Group? Other than my seven officers.
Just in the city's EOP, the evacuation falls on the police department. And so we would just have to get resources to come in and go door to door. We would be using social media, code red through dispatch and a WIA, wireless emergency alert system, and so forth to help us to get word to spread. But it is very, very, very time consuming. And a lot of people, we can't force them out of their house. If they don't want to go, we can't force them.
I was looking at it from a different perspective. I was looking at it from a perspective of not having roads open to get there.
They'll still,
They'll find their way in.
they do find their way.
Yep, guarantee it.
They had that problem in
Geraldo and the
Yeah.
rubber dinghy at the bridge collapse.
like the hurricane guys are told to evacuate here last week, and
Yeah.
now they have a helmet and they want to go live on the Weather Channel. So they're always going to have those, and we just have to plan for them. But this is a 1 mile ring around it, and then I will tell you that downwind, and you're going to see a picture of it here shortly, that downwind is going to be a couple miles. So the decision points on the command group side is we have a mandatory evacuation of 1 mile, which Sergeant Roddy mentioned. If they choose not to participate in said evacuation, that we highly advise them we move to the next house. And then we have a downwind problem, which I put up here is we're already seeing injuries.
Those chemicals, was there any river issues or water issues that we'd have to get another agency involved in?
Eventually down later in on in the work periods, the biggest issue is that cloud moving through the residential area.
First focus is
Where's
life.
the manifest for that train? How do we know what's on the train or the truck?
That's something that we get from either the engineer or the operators of them. They have those on their person. It's just that train might be a mile from where our incident is, and that might just not happen at that first 10 to 20 minutes because they're still trying to get back to where the incident happened or aren't aware of the incident even as well.
But they've got the placards on the cars that are of what they're trying to contain. But you're raising a good point. What's further up in the train, and if we don't contain this, what could happen? Right?
100% true. Is now what's our, I always have plans A, B, and C. So what's plan B? What else is on the train?
what I would say, when the state duty officers called and the state teams are activated, the train companies are excellent at sharing. They know every single car. You just have to give them a couple of numbers off the cars, and they'll figure out exactly which ones are derailed. This should be pretty obvious because of the chemicals involved for them. And then there's an app called Ask Rail, which you guys, the public safety side can have access to, and it tells you what the loads on the train are. The public can't get access to it because they don't want the public to know all that information, but public safety has access to it. And it's something that's really glued together in the last five plus years with some good legislative push in the state of Minnesota, partnering with the rail lines to help hopefully prevent this, but we know that they're going to happen. Anything on the command group that we haven't had? I promise you guys I wasn't going to hammer on the tactics and strategy. Sergeant Roddy, you did mention you guys are in charge of evacuation. What's going to be one of the challenges for your officers, given that you have something that's flammable and toxic?
Well, can we get into the area and safely do it? We don't have the PPE to do it, so can we do it? So that's why we would rely very heavily on social media and the Code Red and the news, the local news network to let these people know. And we just don't have the bodies to do it. It's just going to be very, very, very time consuming. Most likely it wouldn't be a Shakopee officer knocking on the door. It would be another patch coming in from another agency telling people they need to evacuate.
Right.
All right, when we look at the train companies putting together their execs, which will honestly happen super quick, and they have huge plans for this, they'll send out resources to help mitigate this, but they're also going to send out public information. What would you guys want as, whether it's city or the policy group? Or thoughts?
Coordinated, but I don't know if you're going to get that, but I would want our message at least in front.
Okay. So coordinated message, that joint public information?
With the train company, if that's possible.
Okay.
Well, and they have to coordinate the resources. They're going to have to know where to take these resources to, which if you're in Valley Fair's parking lot, which if the wind's going that direction, I don't know if that's the right place to be. Wind's going
towards the city, of course. That's the way I drew it up. There we go. How about that?
Now they're going to...
The orange, where basically from the A to the E's, not good. It's a technical hazmat term, not good.
Get the mile first and you work on the rest next.
The mile is the dotted line.
You're the first one.
I am.
The darker shaded area in the middle that looks like a cone, that's where you're what they will call shelter in place or evac. If it's inside the dotted line, it's evac only. So yes, Valley Fair or somewhere on the backside of this.
We need to be coordinating with the railroad so they know where to bring these resources for staging to be able to utilize them. You're just not going to drop it all off at the intersection and say, here you go, use what you need and let us know, we'll pick up the rest.
In the city, who coordinates public information? I know you guys have a pretty aggressive.
No, it'd be chief at this point.
Yeah, but in conjunction with law enforcement or public safety generally, yes.
The city's EOP says that the mayor is technically the PIO, but that person can delegate it out, is what the EOP says.
And we would draft everything as staff.
So maybe, this is something like the policy group reaching out to the command group saying, hey, get us a name and number. We call that a liaison in our command position, is find me, I want the train, I want somebody I need to talk to from the train, from that company, and I want their PIO so that we can coordinate messages.
PIO, public information officer.
Public information. I'm sorry about all the terminology. Definitely snubbed me on it. A public information officer is when we say PIO in this world, the PIO helps draft the key messages. The public wants to hear from somebody that has a 1 on their badge, helmet, or it says mayor. Those 3 people. And or council. So the key is command group, bridged,
with our chiefs to the council, with whoever our PIO is, to generate those key pieces and ensure they're in concert with what the responsible training company's going to say.
Critical that the information coming out of the city and the railroad, that it's the same information.
Uniform, yep.
I'm not on my little Facebook doing.
Nope.
Well,
my own little
that they're
posts.
not, that, I mean, you don't want the railroad saying it's the truck's fault and, you know, the city saying we're dealing with this and, you know, you're starting to split it apart and not focusing it really on the task at hand.
One message.
And the task on hand is, you've got this area that has a danger and it needs to be evacuated, and this area needs to be shelter in place, and do they really need to know that our command center is seeking more whatever to do this? No.
No, you put them in a,
They need to know, the public needs to know what's important for their life and safety.
One message, one voice, but the bigger the incident, the harder and the more pressure that's going to be on you as the media starts contacting you individually. Mayor, you remember when we arrested Ty Hoffman years ago? Okay. He had lost a lot of weight, didn't look the same. We didn't even have him barely in our police department, and you got a call from the media asking what's going on. I know because you called me and said, what's going on? We didn't know if it was really him, and we don't want to look stupid, you know, saying we got him at the time when we didn't know for sure if it was him. But that's, you have to expect that now in this day and age. You're going to be hit up. Your public figures, you're going to be hit up for some kind of comment, and it is just so important to keep that focus. We're never going to be able to work fast enough to satisfy, especially when we're talking about people's lives at risk. You're working as fast as you can. It's never going to be good enough, but we do the best we can, and we just keep harping that one message going out. But expect you're going to get pressure, and you're going to be contacted individually, for sure, in something like this.
And I think from our standpoint, it'd be good to know when that public comment is going to be made. So there'll be a public comment at 1 p.m. today.
And I think it's important in these, that you don't just say, that's all we're going to have until we have something. You have to keep, we've had incidents in the past where we'll brief you again at 11, or we'll brief you again at 1 o'clock. You know, just keep things going, and you keep giving them something. I think that's very important and advantageous. You keep feeding them information that you can. This is the place, this is where we're going to have accurate information is going to be from this source, this microphone right here from our folks. That's the kind of message we want to get out and make sure that we're very, very clear. This is the place you get your information, not some social media offshoot. If you want timely, accurate information, it's this microphone, this city Facebook, et cetera.
Even if there's nothing to report at that particular time, you can come out and say, yeah, we don't have any new news, but any new.
It can be calming, you know, even to say that, yes. Yep.
And the key is, things to consider is, how do I facilitate that? From the policy group to the command group. Command group's out in the field on the opposite side of this from you. How do I facilitate it? And so back in the day, it was, you know, we always preached, and I don't say old, but I'm well seasoned, so 33 years. It was always face to face. And what did we learn? Couldn't do it. And so using technology. So it may be Teams meetings, and I don't know if you use Teams here, but having Teams meetings to get the commanders to brief from the command post to the policy group to say, hey, here's what we have, here's the look, and then setting that frequency so that the command group can focus on command, policy group focuses on policy and public.
It's really easy for us just to simply say, you know, when you're contacted on something, like the case that Chief brought up, I just basically said, I'm going to refer you to the Chief of Police for any comment. And, you know, in the case that we're dealing on now, you know, if you get contacted, it's pretty easy to say, yeah, obviously we have an emergency situation going on in town. Our emergency team is going to do an update at 2 o'clock, so if you want to be looking for that, you'll be informed at that point, you know. Let it go at that.
Yep.
They're going to ask a whole lot of questions, and don't say you don't know, because they expect everybody to know everything. Just tell them, this is the format. At this time, there'll be an update. I recommend that you be there for that.
Anything that we're missing at this point before we take a step forward, or any questions?
I think just one
Yes, sir.
real important thing, when you look at that cloud in this or that area, how many of you live in there? How many city staff live in that area? So,
The council chambers, I think, is within.
you know, I mean, that's going to impact response. That's going to impact, maybe some of you can't get here, and that's okay. Safety is number one. You have to take care of yourself, and it might impact, again, where we open up an emergency operations center. So odds are, if something big happens in this city, it's going to impact whether it's a firefighter, some of our police officers, all of you. I mean, we have a lot of city staff that live in the city too. And so some of the numbers we think we're going to be able to draw and come help do this, we might not.
Right.
I have a question. What happens if you can't get a quorum of your policymakers?
Well, that's part of the reason that either the mayor or the deputy mayor is able to sign that emergency declaration. Because odds are, again, something like this, it's going to be hard to get all of you in. And that's why you get 3 days, that grace period, as
Right,
Greg
but if
talked
there's
about.
policy decisions that pop up during this incident and you can't get a quorum together, a majority together, then what happens?
Well, that's part of your, again, the emergency declaration. When we get to a point where we are beyond just the normal day-to-day operations of something, and an emergency has been declared, you're delegating essentially a lot of things to city staff to take care of and take care of business.
Right. In a natural disaster, if it's my house, I'm thinking of my family first, you know.
And there's where linking to your attorney, doing that declaration of emergency early, you can always rescind it. And it seems like agencies and governments have a fear to do it. It's not costing you anything. You just, on the backside with spending, we just have to have some policy guidance and an understanding that, hey, our command crew can't go out and it's not open checkbook. And I'll talk about the state and the FEMA side of it here shortly. How can city staff help? You know, in my map right out of the ERG, what are some tools to help identify? Because that, honestly, in a command post, that's what you have. Correct? Am I lying about that? So we are making really difficult decisions in the command side of this on that picture.
Staff is going to have to make a pretty quick decision if they're going to move operations to be able to be effective. Otherwise, they're going to be trapped inside.
Okay.
But we're going to need some evacuation sites too, out in the area.
Well, you can move
So
over to
plan
Sky
B, where
Corner.
we go to as a staff. How can I highlight that a little bit? Who do you most likely have within staff really good with maps? Thank you.
Yes.
Give this to a GIS person, overlay, give them whatever you can, and let them start to assess what neighborhoods, what homes, earlier than later, a non-hazmat one, being on state response teams. Can't tell you how many times we end up showing up in floods and tornadoes a couple days after to help the locals. And does anybody have a GIS person? So we can create a map and then use the parcel data. Use all that data that exists to start driving decisions, both from the command level to the policy level. Gives you the cleaner picture, because we can start, as some of these resources come in, we can start to make adjustments, what we call plume modeling. So just something to think about. All right, I'm gonna push it forward a little bit. We talked through these commands.
Let me bring up one more point. So if that train derails and stops the train, half of the town is cut off because half of the train is probably still in town. So there's a lot of things you guys can think about.
Not to mention that fire station 1 is in the cloud,
Yeah.
although they have breathing apparatuses and stuff, but
It won't get there that fast. They should already be out of the station. However, it is, now we've lost a base of operation. Or potentially lost that, depending on your monitoring. What I would say, back up for a second, in this cloud, not in the dotted line, there's where your state teams come in with their technologies, and they can, what they do is model it, and we start to look and we get numbers. We get numbers that tell us whether, from an OSHA standpoint, are we in safe, unsafe, or dangerous. And unsafe and dangerous means we need to do some protection. Safe is, you're going to have people that are going to live on the other side of town. You'll have people on the other side of the river in, we won't name communities, just pick any one. They're going to be, I'm affected by this. I know that I've had a problem. My big toe hurts, and I know that was one of the signs and symptoms. Probably my mom calling from Waconia. I don't know. But you're going to have to deconflict.
Does the monitoring have the capability of doing sampling and figuring out the space of dilution to map further out? So if you look at this colored area, that's a shelter-in-place area. But if you look to the west of that, at what point do we know that the deletion is going to be an area that's never going to be affected to the point of harm to somebody, or you have to shelter in place?
I would say never say never. Right. Not arguing with you, the mayor, I can't argue with you. Is that, with that though, they're going to do modeling. And what they do is they put up remote monitors that go back to a fancy computer. It's really cool technology. And then they use, it is modeling. They have computer models that will draw this out and say, here's what we have. This is essentially a very conservative computer model.
Right.
Not based on qualified data. I didn't run around with monitors and do GPS points. And what they'll do is, you'll see this narrow more than get wide. What you have to account for is weather. Right. But it's the policy decisions. It's the command group making some command decisions.
Well, we also have to think about what happened at the site, right? I mean, if they knock it down quick and can contain it,
Cap it off,
that's good, but what happens if 5, 6 more cars go up and they've got even worse stuff on them?
Okay.
Right?
So there's probably PPE to get in there for the experts.
Yep.
To do their job. How long, in some of your experience, does it take to at least get this safe enough so it's not continuing to contaminate? I guess it all depends. So it's all different.
That's a whole lot of.
A lot of scenarios.
I'm going to let them answer first, and then I'll give you.
A few days, it could be.
Could be hours, could be days.
Well, realistically, you guys had to throw the semi in there because our train only goes 10 miles an hour. So what actually, And
because I know that in Shakopee, that the train only goes that speed, that's why I had to ram it with a semi to get it to tip over. I'm not going to lie. I'm very transparent that way.
But at least that we have some safety mechanisms that are baked in place.
Yes.
So,
And that is a few reasons why that train, depending on what they're hauling, trains going slower are technically safer. Your derailments come in the wintertime. But go back to how long. In a case like this, if you relate this back to other cases across the country, figuring a week before maybe some of those people get in. So it's okay if you don't know, so you can push right back at me. If I start bombing that with water, because you got a pretty good water supply down there, we got a water tower, it's a good water supply, and I put that fire out, what have I now created? So is it better to have it light up and burn, or should I put it out and let it leak?
It depends on some modeling.
That's the commanders will be weighing that they may just dump foam or water on the outside to protect the growth. Keep it from impinging on the next car up or the next car back. But we need to let this burn, because now when you call the duty officer, you are now going to click state agencies automatically. You've got MDH, PCA, beyond the hazmat teams, and they're all going to come here and they will all give you their professional opinion. And they're most likely all going to say, let this thing burn.
all the water's heading to the river.
And I pretty much can guarantee you the rail's going to say the exact same. They want that track clear, So let it burn. Once they can get in, they'll separate those other cars and drive the train forward. And usually there's a train on the backside, so they split it. But you have an area of this, whatever this part of the community is, let's just focus on the circle for a second. You've evacuated people, and most of them have listened and said, okay, we're gonna go somewhere else.
We had a lot of major recreation in that area too.
What? I just want to focus on the homes though. I'm gonna drive this down the homes. When I vacate a house in an entire neighborhood, what problem does that create? And I will look to my command group.
Potential crime, opportunities, looting.
So what may we need to discuss to do in that area?
Tighten our perimeters and credentialing.
Okay?
What about
Well, the people you're displacing need to have somewhere to go.
We're gonna make the assumption they have somewhere to go.
Okay.
curfew?
What was that?
Need a curfew.
What's that?
Well, when I was a kid,
1800s.
well, everybody has to be off the streets by a certain time.
And in law enforcement, what is that? If I'm a policy level and we say, okay, curfew, what is that? What powers does that give you?
It gives us the ability to stop people. It creates that reasonable suspicion needed to stop someone, to ID them, and to figure out what are they doing in this neighborhood. Did they just not evacuate, or are they in this neighborhood and they shouldn't be in this neighborhood?
So thus to the credentialing. How do we get to the curfew? We can trigger it and pair it together with a declaration of emergency. So once again, why that can be so empowering, and we'll get to the what's it going to bring you, but in this is a curfew. Curfews have been enacted in many disasters in Minnesota, and I give down south, the floods from like 10 years ago, there was a sheriff down there, it was like the first thing he said out of the gate. They did a curfew around one of the small towns as you go to Rochester, and he was very blunt about it. Do not come to our towns. They had to evacuate due to the flooding. Because crime does go up, believe it or not, and as horrible as that sounds. It will go up during disasters, whether it's a tornado, flood, anything that you have evacuated people away from, because people will say, hey, nobody's home. And we don't care about the ring doorbell because they're not going to get in. So with that, let's jump forward. Get to this last scenario and Jack, so I keep you on time. The initial estimates that the emergency phase will last up to 5 days. So this gets to the question that Councilmember Whiting had asked or mentioned is that how long? Stuff like this is five days. And that's just to slow this fire down. To get people back. Cleanup is not 5 days unless they just go tip over and it doesn't leak, then that's usually hours for those rail cars. And so we'll have to hold those evacuation zones and or protect employees. Evacuation will affect over 5,000 residents of some sort. So a sheltering plan is needed. I want to pause there for a second. How difficult do you think a sheltering operation would be? Your residents need to go somewhere.
Difficult. Hard.
Hey, Chief Giddings, why do you say that?
Just the logistics of it. Age of kids, pets, food, water, clothing.
Okay.
It's a logistic nightmare for that.
So we have 2 certified emergency managers, actually 4 certified emergency managers in the room. Is this an operation you'd want to take on, or would you want to pass this baton?
Red Cross, VOAD, MinVOAD.
Red Cross, MinVOAD, the county, anybody else but us, because this one is one of the most difficult. Where can you as a city come together with it, school district? And others should already have some plans, not so much for sheltering, but for what we call family assistance, and we're arguing over some of the terminology now in the EM world about some of this. And I don't know what they use here for family reunification in the school district, probably the I Love You Guys Foundation. I'm assuming everybody's using that one. So we're gonna have some of those pieces that are gonna come up that, hey, we're gonna pass the baton, and this is where the county EOC can come in, is where the city command group says, hey, we need help with sheltering, and the county's EM can say, let us take on sheltering, you keep fighting the incident. Where county board, city council, county EM, everybody starts getting those wheels working together. And so it's finding, all right, who's gonna be the lead on which one of these key pieces? Because the second that they pull that trigger, you have affected residents, and the second you move them out, they want to know, when can I come back?
Well, and that's just it. If you're not on top of it ahead of time, it's really hard to start telling these people to go when they've got nowhere to go. And when they say, where do I go? We don't know yet. We haven't figured that out yet.
What kind of, do we have a thought on what percentage of our population is going to require some sort of assisted shelter? Or I'm assuming a certain part would go stay with relatives or go live somewhere else, but how many people do we think are going to require our assistance? Any idea?
I don't have the demographics as far as, and it would really depend upon what the evacuation zone is and how big, and if it's going to affect people in assisted living or nursing homes and so forth. And with the plume modeling and with the current map here, we got to keep in mind that it may completely eliminate a lot of options for sheltering too. So we may be going outside of the city and dipping into our neighbors to the north of us to assist.
Public health can be county public health. When you go across the river, you'll have Carver County Public Health, you have Hennepin County Public Health, and you have Bloomington. Those are all the public health departments across, which can all help with certain aspects of this. It's just knowing that, hey, I just need to trigger that. And like I said, this is not a bad one to pass off to the county. We really need your help in this area.
Part of a coordinated effort.
Very good. Yes. The medical, the 50 patients, severe inhalation, I threw that in there because that's basically from an EMS. That's what I do on a day-to-day basis. We're just going to overwhelm our hospital system. It's already overwhelmed. In the metro, not St. Francis, the entire thing. That's going to be too
Doesn't the health area, like Alina, St. Francis, and these other hospitals, that's kind of their own separate cube that figures out where to put everybody?
Yeah, the Metro Healthcare Coalition will, through a systems that we have, we will level load the system. So we will be able to, we can quickly do some research and find out what hospital bed availability is, and then start to move patients to those facilities. In this case, they're going to be going to Rochester, Duluth, St. Cloud, and over into Sioux Falls for sure, really quick, because depending on, and they'll be airlifted to ground ambulance.
Wow.
Yeah, on the EMS side, it gets real aggressive real fast because of the toxic piece. And then the community, demanding to know, as we have experienced in others, they want to know about the chemical exposure, so there's where we can engage public health, but also when can we get back in? So just things to pre-plan for and think of. So I want to talk, the last piece, I just want to talk through, we talked about assistance and we talked about money. In how you see it, how do you see where does all the financial assistance come from? In this case, and throw anything out there.
Sewer fund.
And I'm not talking internally that we have a special, emergency management fund. I'm talking from external sources.
I would guess that a lot of the upfront expense is going to be on us.
Yeah.
We're going to be, the goal is to get that reimbursement by doing your paperwork, keeping tabs on your expenses.
Would that be FEMA?
And stuff. You're going to get some, well, let's see, they have different requirements for
That's more
the
natural.
state and the federal. So some qualify one, some qualify for both, some qualify for the other. Not an expert in that area, but.
So expectations. Obviously, this First part is gonna be, it's on the back of the city. I would tell you, 33 years in public safety, that first 48 hours, maybe a little bit longer, all of those assets that are coming, it's not just gonna be Prior Lake and Savage helping you out. You're gonna see fire trucks and squad cars that you're like, where did they come from? I've never heard of that town, because of our systems. And they'll all donate that. We still need to track it. So our finance person's our most important person. Still track it, because we still need to know those numbers. Is that you, Nathan?
It is too. And a lot of times too, it's the resources, like you were talking about people coming in hours and trucks and stuff. If it is a emergency, you can get that reimbursed. Even like vehicle and staff time that really, I guess there's an expense there, but there are already stuff that you already have. I mean, you're not going out to purchase additional staff, you already have staff, but those type of hours usually can get reimbursed too if it's a big emergency.
And when you get to mutual aid, if you want to apply cost to it, just the easiest way is look up the FEMA cost codes, the current FEMA cost sheet. They have a cost for everything, and you just, spreadsheet is, I got X number of squad cars, and we're going to say it's $75 an hour or whatever the current FEMA rate is, and then we times that in simple spreadsheet. But it's keeping a track of those costs.
Do we use the FEMA's or do we use our already adopted fee schedule?
Either one. If you have one adopted by council,
We do.
you will be, FEMA and the state defaults back to that. And then if you don't have one, you can default to FEMA, but I'm gonna unfortunately deflate the FEMA bubble here in just a second. So I'm gonna give you the bad news. So the way that it would work in this case is you declare that emergency, say the council comes in and you're able to ratify that earlier than 3 days, and you are putting a stake in the ground saying, hey state, we have a problem. State's already gonna know because they'll have the duty officer, everybody, you're gonna get the governor, and everybody's gonna get alerted to this thing really quick because of the media influence.
Right.
And with that is, okay, where do we get assistance from? The state does have, so let's go to the county. The next level is the county. And the county most likely does not have a disaster fund that's going to be able to support the city of Shakopee or what this is going on. And they're going to use any of their funds, as counties do, for their whatever operations to support. And that's very normal. So the county is not a funding source. The state has some funds as specified within state statute, but I would tell you it's so underfunded for emergencies. We've burned through it this year with the floods and so forth. So it is part of, hey, is there any other funding? HSEM, Homeland Security Emergency Management for the state of Minnesota, they get noticed, and I'll go through how this escalates as far as declarations, and they're not going to have much. And FEMA is going to tell you that this is not our problem. Sorry you're having this incident. This won't come up on the National Operations Center. It'll come up on some briefs that are run by a lot of people's desks. You'll be an incident of national significance with zero support from FEMA, other than maybe a couple of resources here or there from the EPA, because there's a responsible party. So in Ohio, if you look at some of that, a lot of the residents were angry that FEMA never showed up. FEMA isn't an insurance company. FEMA's geared for the natural disasters and or some man-made disasters to support a gap in between disaster minute 1 to your insurance company kicks in. There's public assistance that's designed to support you as a public entity, get roads cleared, pay for emergency services and so forth. And then there's individual assistance, which is to the individuals themselves, extremely hard to get to. I would say I was a little working down south on the floods. I knew they would get public assistance, but the feds gave them individual assistance because of the farms and so forth. And so it's very hard. Those are your two levels. To get there, the city can declare or the county can declare an emergency. And so you could be covered underneath the county if the county said, hey, we're going to declare. County declares, it then goes to the state. The state has to say, okay, yeah, this is pretty big. We've consumed our resources. We're going to declare to FEMA. And that's how it escalates. So when this is, take this situation now, it's a tornado. What we're, tornado and floods we're good at.
It's the city to the county to the state to the feds. And we can't jump that. I can't, as a city, say, you know, I'm gonna go over to the state. So nobody gets to jump those lines. And that's all in law. That is how our system works. In this case, unfortunately, if a lot of people will look for FEMA, they're not gonna step forward.
Well, we know the courthouse was in the zone.
In the zone.
So we got those guys, I think.
Well, the county would have to declare an emergency for Scott County, which would be the next level, and then it's up to the state to decide on their own if it's a big enough incident to be a state emergency.
But at the end of the day, I mean, to be blunt, would it not be, is it not fair to say, hey, who's paying for this? Because we didn't do it. I mean, it's kind of blunt.
We know there's somebody at fault. It's either gonna be the trucking company or the rail line.
Yep.
Well, let's switch it to a natural disaster, then you got a whole.
Well, when it's a natural
That's what
disaster,
That's when you get the FEMA.
yeah.
It's the other piece here is this glue back with your liaison or somebody at the policy level, it could be our administration, is gluing together with the rail company and or if we can get whoever the shipper was. At a minimum, the rail, because they're the ones that are going to help Nathan over there balance some spreadsheets of, hey, you know, it could be $1 million in the response on this. Hazmat's massively expensive, but they're insured for that. So this one is a bit of a challenge. The last piece to this, and then I promise I'm going to let you go because I said I would keep it to an hour. I know I'm already over. I did offer if I was over my hour, the chief could tase me. Yeah, that's right. And Sergeant Roddy offered to help. So with that is command group, and this I'll go to all four of you. What would be 3 key messages during this disaster at any point that you would want to say?
I would say probably the most important one is not a department within our city that this doesn't affect, all the way to Parks and Rec, to Public Works, and all levels. It's not just a emergency service and policy side, because we have the evacuation, we have normal day-to-day operations from kids softball to anything other events going on in the city that's being coordinated by a number of individuals, from engineering to finance. It's not just a two-party system, it's the entire city in a whole.
Okay. Chiefs, anything you would add, or Sergeant Rod?
Communication. You have to get ahead of this. You have to get a message out very quickly, coordinate a message. That's why we'd want to open up a JIC. And so people know
Joint information.
where to go.
And where
Yes,
not to
thank you.
go.
Correct. To the evacuation, where they can go, where they can take their pets, what they need to bring quickly. Communication is huge. We have to get ahead of it immediately.
And no softball game tonight.
Correct.
All right.
Chiefs, anything to add to that? Go ahead.
Again, I guess you can't hammer the communication thing, speak with one voice enough. When we did the tornado presentation, I don't know, a couple years ago, we talked about this too. You know, as a policy group, questions to ask. What's not getting done? What's that? You alluded to it a little bit. I mean, it's going to affect every single part of the city and how we function. Are the roads going to get plowed? Is there going to be a softball game or a soccer game? Because we won't be able to stripe the fields because our staff is all tied up. So what's not getting done? And then again, communication. And then I think we all have to kind of look out for each other here a little bit too. This is a long, high-stress event. There's going to be a burnout and a fatigue thing, and we have to collectively, as a big group, if we see somebody that needs a break or that we need to tap on the shoulder, whether that's the city administrator, the fire chief, the police chief, go home, get a meal, and get some sleep. You know, this will be here when you get back too. So these things, you tend to go, in the first 48 hours, but what happens when you get into day 4, day 5? That's something we all collectively, I think, can take, make sure we're taking a pause and looking out for each other too.
I think how you frame that wording is important, because you can say that, you know, during this event, we're going to be focusing on priority services and define some of them basic priority services. I mean, you're not going to let a heart attack call just go unanswered, right? But at the same time, that's kind of telling people that there's important things and less important things. And Johnny's baseball game just might not happen tonight, or you know, something's canceled here or there. These are not priority things. We're focusing on these life-saving measures over here.
Chief Nelson.
Yeah, I just want to touch on the safety component. We talked about the evacuation side of it, and it's not going to be quick, and we're going to have people that don't want to evacuate. So when it comes to safety, we want to address the acuity stuff and what's going to happen right now and why it's important to evacuate. But as we look at that cone that was out there, and we look 5 days down the road, and we're telling people now they can come back in, those concerns are going to be the reverse of that. Is it safe for me to go back? I know you're telling me I can, but what should I be thinking about in my house? It stinks in here. Or I think I smell something. So we need to address both sides of it and provide that safety and security to people, that they understand that we are on top of things. We know what we're looking at. That's why we made you wait the 5 days, and help explain that at day 3 why we're going to 5 and what they can expect when they move in. So it's really alleviating those concerns and not just keeping the snowballing that's going to happen through various social media and other posts that are out there to address all of that up front and ahead of time.
Some of that is just summarizing what you've already put out in the public. When they see a map of a cloud and they see the monitoring dropping and dropping and dropping in these models and stuff by other agencies that are much more, I don't want to say reputable, but more
Detailed?
expertise oriented in them fields, that they feel more reassured, because now we can take what Chief Nelson just said and say, this is the information that shows you that it's safe.
Your subject matter experts.
Exactly. Now
maybe you're consulting. You know.
That's why I kind of, one of my favorite people, I want to say there's a second most favorite person next to finance is your GIS. They create a picture. Wyndham this year, as a good example, we didn't have GIS, so we created a GIS map, and it was predicting where the crest would be. They hit their 500-year flood, you know, the flood that you're never supposed to get to, they hit it. And the flood map was going to wipe out town. Had to put that out. Man, did that cause some issues for the mayor. But then once things started to look like, hey, we're seeing a crest here, new map showing actually a regression, which brought some calm to the chaos. But yeah, and so people want the pictures. They want to see things. They want to be kept informed. That's one of our biggest struggles. Chelsea, any key messages from city staff that you would say based on what we threw you through in the last hour and 15 minutes?
Nothing more than what these guys talked about. I mean, the communication piece is huge, both for the community and for these guys and for city staff. And communicate.
Do we know how many households are using the code red, or any idea on that?
We should be able to reach most of them. If we can't do the code red, we can send out, Scott County EM can send out a WIA, a wireless emergency alert. So that would hit off the towers as far as where the people, so that would not only hit the residents, that also hit the people that are in the city visiting or tourists also. That would be the better of the two.
The technology is helping anyway.
Yes.
If you've been at a location not in and around your home where you've registered for code red, you're 100 miles away from here and your phone's beep due to an Amber Alert in the iPod system, we have the ability to do that actually at the local level. So you'll see both the code red and that iPod's triggered. It'll hit every device, assuming they have it on. And then council, key messages, thoughts based off of what we gave you.
Don't everybody speak at once.
I just think it's important to just be unified and not all of us do our own little thing. I think we all just need to maybe let Matt handle it, and if he wants to delegate something to one of us, he can, but we all just can't be all doing our own independent thing because it will just make a mess.
I think it's critical that council has information.
Well, that we have information, but that we don't just, everybody share their own, one unified message. is
Well,
my
once the
thing.
city puts out a unified message,
Yep.
and you have that unified message, if somebody contacts you from some media outlet and asks you questions, you can read that unified message to them.
No, I agree. I think it's all been said, so.
Same thing, communication's the key, gotta get out.
A big component of an event like this, and we've all been on big events, is you have to stay in your lane, right? We're not going to be, we're in the command group. That's what we do. You're in the policy group. That's what you do. You can't cross over. You're in a silo. As soon as you start coming over to command and trying to make tactical decisions, and we start coming over to the policy group and start making policy decisions, that's where incidents go sideways. That's where communication breaks down, that's where frustration happens, and that's where egos happen. So we all have to stay in our swim lane.
And that discipline can be difficult at first. Well, that's why NIMS has been stressing this. That's why in the state of Minnesota we're stressing these groups using this foundational of NIMS, is because what we've seen over and over is when everybody has, it's like, hey, I'm in the command group or I'm in the coordination group. EOCs versus commanders. If I'm the county's emergency manager, I am not here to tell these two what to do. Would I know a bit about this? Absolutely. This is kind of the stuff I like to do. But it's not my job. They're the command group. I might whisper in their ear and say, hey, did you think about this? But, hey, guys, I can help with the resources. Let me find your resources. Because it's a management function in emergency management, not a command function. And so even within our own discipline, we are trying to get better at here's our lanes. Tell what to do, because where do we all want to be? We all want to be connected to it, and that's very natural.
Here's the dilemma between the silos. And not that I don't disagree with the silos, but when, the people on the ground, first responders are there, they're doing their thing, and they know that they've got this cloud, the other silos need to know that this is a concern, because they could be starting to think about these resources, contacting the county, maybe Carver County and some other folks, and starting to get these thoughts going about, is housing going to be an issue? They didn't flat out say from this silo to this silo, I need this, and you certainly don't want to hear that at the 12th hour.
Yep.
Because now you've got these people that have to be moved immediately with nowhere to go, right? So the communications between the silos is critical, and not only from a standpoint of the incident silo on command saying they need this, this, and this, and then the other silo trying to find these things, but it's not always being told that. Sometimes when they're saying things, you pick up on these things, and you can reaffirm if that's an issue, right?
Yes.
And that's critical, and that's why there's more than one person in each silo, because other people might pick up on it, and somebody else didn't.
And it's having those routine briefings.
Yep.
What routine means is
Well,
you define that. Usually more of them early in that early phases, and I don't mean every 10 minutes. That would, as a commander, that would really that would stress me out. But maybe it's hour, maybe it's 2 hours. And the two questions are, what do you need from me? And here's what I need from you. And that helps back to our lanes, that communication across.
And not only if you're picking up on something that somebody isn't actually asking for, but you're thinking about it just in the conversation, the communication is two-way. You need to be going back to that silo with your communication and saying, is this going to be an issue shortly? Because they're dealing with a lot of stuff. And some of this information is coming out, and it's not their first priority because the issue right in front of them is their first priority. And you pick up on these things so you ask them, is this going to be an issue? Well, it probably will be. Well, start planning over here.
All right, with that, that brings us to the end. Is it helpful? Not so helpful? I'm good. Yeah, I have thick skin somewhat. I'll only cry for a day or two.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, some of us took the courses that were offered through, Scott County had it out at the training center out there, so.
And if there's, anything like at the MSB, stuff to support on this, the chiefs, we already try to help out in some other areas, but that's what we do. And part of us at the MESB is just to try to get out and, hey, we're here. It's all, yes, it's our county commissioners, 2 of them. Beard and Wolf are the 2 that represent on the board for Scott County, but they're really pushing to, hey, get out to these groups, both councils, our policy group and our command groups, and find out where we need to do a little, where can we help, whether it's looking for grants or just doing tabletops. So with that, I appreciate your time. Thanks for letting me come in, and nice work. We got through it all.
Any questions for?
Yeah, we got fire away.
Just one question. You mentioned Code Red. What app is that? Or?
Code Red, the county has Code Red, which is, there's Everbridge, there's Code Red there. It's just the generic name of it, and it's a mass notification system within Scott County. If you go to Scott, I can't give you the exact web address, but if you go into the emergency management side, there's a registration there. So you register your phone, and then they'll send you messages. It can be, I don't know if they're doing, I don't live in Scott County, I'm on the other side. So it can be severe weather to, if there's a significant law enforcement incident.
Local Amber Alerts and stuff like that.
Yeah.
We can send that link out to you.
Thanks. Yeah. Other questions?
So it never hurts to do the declaration of emergency. The sooner, the better.
I would, it seems like, in my professional opinion, in EM and travel around and do a disaster response, a lot of people are in, whether we want to call it the denial phase, they're like, God, it doesn't hurt to do it. You're not, if your attorney was here, it's not, the council can say,
No.
You know what, we didn't really need it. Would I do it for the medical tonight, that fire and PD's up? No. No, it would be, I would look to my subject matter experts, the chiefs and or their captains, chiefs, other chiefs, lieutenants, depending on PD or LE, to say, do we need this? But that declaration of emergency helps in some of those other areas. The biggest piece for a city on the finance side is, okay, we need generators.
Right.
And the cities, under emergency powers, you can commandeer, if you will, but you have to keep track because you have to reimburse these companies.
Yep.
The going rate for
that's the piece. You do a disaster declaration of emergency. It's different than disaster declaration. Once again, my favorite person's anybody in finance, because, okay, create a spreadsheet, let's start tracking.
Got it.
The mayor of Wyndham.
You got to like Public Works because you're going to need their trucks to move that.
And it gets expensive quick. And so that's, in Wyndham, the city administrator probably spent $200,000 in about 24 hours during the height of that response. And I was like, we need to sit down and create a spreadsheet. I don't have time for that. No, we need to do that. And we sat down for 30 minutes. I put stuff on a spreadsheet because they didn't have a finance person. It was funny. He comes back another 30 minutes later with more stuff that, because you just get in, we will get, as commanders, we start ordering things. And it's like, okay, what did you order an hour ago? I don't know, it's out there. Well, there's 200 of that out there. So.
In most cases, and this is my guess, in most cases, it's going to be staff asking for an emergency declaration, not a mayor or council deciding, you know what, that's a pretty bad car accident, I think I'll declare an emergency. It doesn't work that way.
You should be getting those clues and cues.
Yeah.
The key is, as a policy person, ask the questions to our chiefs. Okay, just give me the why. Sell me on this a little bit, but sometimes I've seen where we've gotten too resistive, and it's like, no, it's like, okay, get some of that sorted out pre-game, even to having the declaration of emergency is already in the EOP. Am I correct on that? So it's just fill in the blanks. Did that answer your question? With that, I've used up my time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful rest of your council.
Go over.
I did go over. Yeah.
Days me later.
Gonna get talking to by the chief.
Questions, we're now going to have a show. Go ahead, Mr. Roddy.
The noun. Trust me.
Just having fun. We like to have fun in Shakopee. All right, thank you, sir, and staff folks, appreciate your time on this. What do we have? Item number 11. 11A, city bill list.
Thank you.
Any
No
questions on the bill list?
No questions for me.
Delaney? Side. 11B, liaison, we'll start on this end. We started over here last time.
Okay, 169 Coalition. We had a priority workshop. It was held on the 3rd of October. Thanks, engineering, for attending that. It was held online, Zoom. The projects were ranked by member support, funding, opportunity, and impacts such as safety. I think it's on my other pair of eyes here. Safety enhancement, reliability improvements, regional benefits, etc. Next steps will be a follow-up meeting in November, and then we'll present to the full membership in December, and we'll roll it out during the legislative start next year, January, February, and then go on a roadshow pretty much of sharing with the other coalitions.
This is a list of priorities?
List of priorities. The top.
Well, once you guys adopt them, just share them with
I'll
staff
share
to share with
we had
council.
a long laundry list here. But also, I think somebody asked about an update about 55-169. That may have been the mayor.
Yeah, that was the mobility study that was taken off the shelf and dusted off to update.
Oh, I thought you meant more of the construction along there.
Okay, go ahead.
Oh, this was a 20 mil cost. Duration is going to be from April 2024 to summer 2025. And the scope was resurface, I-55 paving modifications, stormwater improvements, shared use trail updates, signal replacement, and there's a whole laundry list of other updates going through there. But also our monthly meeting, I want to mention this, will be hosted by SMSC. Okay. And that's it for 169 Coalition. Nothing
good.
for spot.
Thank you. Mr. Whiting?
Oh, thank you. We had our MVTA board retreat last week where we talked about some upcoming route changes proposed. One for Shakopee. Canterbury, through our partnerships committee, has been working with MVTA to create a route around the amphitheater, especially during event nights and things like that, and where that would extend to and how we would loop in some of those transit stations and things like that. Also talked about our upcoming contract negotiations with Schmitty and Sons and where some changes might be coming in that respect. So that's about it.
MBTA. Councilor Contreras.
Thank you, Mayor. So on Thursday, I toured the GN facility, and we got to see how amazing that building is going to be. I mean, it's great, it's big, but it's going to be even better, and we're hoping to have it ready to go by April, if I'm not mistaken. And then Friday, I attended the scale meeting where Shakopee was our host, and Mayor did his update. And I'd like to say kudos to the mayor on his update because he highlighted our award-winning staff. You did a great job. I actually liked the way you talked about all our departments. You gave everybody, the update on our departments and how great we're doing. I know there's things that we still need to work on, but you focused on the good stuff, so I appreciate that.
And the things that I highlighted that our challenges are not just challenges for Shakopee, but our challenges for Scott County and all cities around us too.
Yeah, so thank you for that. And then we also had Scott County Trends in Healthcare, and I think it was, St. Francis and Mayo Clinic Health System in UPreg. They did talk about all their good stuff and bad stuff, and they talked a little bit about the IV shortage that we had. From that day, I think they were also talking about the incident command. They had their stand down after 6 days as of Thursday at noon. But that IV shortage caused cancellation of procedures, that had to happen because of that. And I mean, she talked about so many things that caused. And then the good thing is that we was able to get over it, and a lot of stuff, just continued on. But then they were also talking about where to meeting the patients where they are. That was a big thing, like giving patients what they need. They were talking about telehealth and home health care, our mental health crisis, how high it is, and how it affects. And then another thing that I wrote down is the gaps, gaps that they're trying to, meet, just different things, just so many things. Sorry, I just had tons of notes, but I'm just like, I just wrote little bits and pieces here. But that was a really good update from our Scott County healthcare system. So kudos to that. That was a really good meeting, at least for me.
Yeah, I thought it was too.
Yep.
Mr. Lara, thank you, Counselor.
I as well went to GN to take a look and just to hear how excited that company is to come locate here was really refreshing. It was nice to hear that they took their inbound leaders to various businesses within Shakopee, and they really enjoyed themselves here, so that was good to hear. And so we're excited to have them. And then I think it was that morning too, I met with some downtown business owners. Their main concern was communication from the city aspect of when streets close, different projects that might impact their businesses or parking or different things like that. They just wish that the communication was a little bit stronger. So in the process of working that out.
Are they asking from an event standpoint or from a road construction standpoint, like the parking lot down there, or both maybe?
It was a little bit of both, but that was kind of, the event portion was kind of geared towards more of the chamber, because they're the ones that are actually closing down streets. Right. The main concern was the construction and just different various public works projects and things like that. They just wish there was just they said, residents get a good job getting notices. They just wish businesses would get notices like that as well.
With River City Center and the Second Avenue parking lot, there's been a lot of construction down there,
Yep.
so.
Can, now I know when there's a street closed, I get a notification somewhere online. I don't know, I never say nothing, but I have that information if somebody asks. Is there somewhere that the people can sign up for that notification on the city website?
Generally, we have, sorry, Alex, were you going to chime in? We do have some city notifications that you could sign up for specific areas.
Can businesses sign up for that?
Absolutely, anybody with an email address.
So
sign
you
up
can
for that.
take that back as our liaison to the downtown, right?
Yes.
And you can direct them to that.
Sure.
They can
Would you
sign up
mind
for that,
giving me-
and they can have that information. And then the chamber stuff, yeah.
Like, for example, one business was like, hey, we really like the trunk or treat thing, but I might as well just had closed my doors that day because there's no traffic to come in. Is it possible to move it to Huber Park? We're still downtown,
Sure.
but can we move it, over here instead?
Yep.
So, but that was more of a chamber thing but it made sense.
Do you know if that business is a chamber member?
Yes.
It seems like the avenue is right there for them to
Yep.
go to a chamber meeting and have these conversations and see where the best location would be for everybody.
Right, and the chamber representative was there too, so
Very good.
they heard it.
Very good. So it sounds like the communication lines are open. Very good. Anything else? Mine, I have October 2nd, MLC, staff and I, Chelsea Peterson, assistant, attended. A lot of discussion on housing, the housing, missing middle housing specifically. Attorney General Ellison was there. He gave us a lowdown of the trends that, I asked for the top five trends. So he gave us the top five in his view of trends in Minnesota, basically. October 7th, we did, our assistant and I toured the Minnetonka Fire Department and Police Department. They just put a new addition, or built a new fire station, was it? And then did some remodeling, so that was pretty cool. We were there on site, so October 7th, at a general conversation with the chief of police, just general community stuff. The one thing that I heard a lot about was the e-bike issue, mopeds and these types of things. I saw the police department put some information out on their website about that. That's good information to have. It's good that everybody can actually read the information, and we're all on the same playing field, what the road books are, and if everybody follows the traffic rules, whether it's a car, bike, walker, or e-bikes, it does make the community safer, so. October 10th, I attended the GN tour, welcomed their CEOs, two of them from Denmark, and I took the tour myself. And yes, they have some aggressive expansion plans for that building, immediate. To get, yeah, I think they said they wanted to be done by the end of April to move in.
By May.
May 1st. And then they have a longer range potential for some other expansion on the site too. So wish the greatest of success to them. One of them was into racing, so me and him had some sidebars about racing stuff. That was pretty cool. Let's see, October 11th, I presented it at scale, as Councilor Contreras pointed out. Our assistant administrator was really nice to put a slideshow together representing some of Shakopee's great achievements. I thought the presentation went well. I thought it was pretty straightforward on some of our major accomplishments by both this council and staff, and the challenges, you know, that we do have, Met Council and the Housing First push. So, and that's not just, like I said, that's not just our issue. That's multiple counties and multiple cities, and it's recognized by both sides of the aisle at the state level too. So that's my report. Does administration have a report?
Just a reminder that cleanup day is upon us. It's this Saturday from 7:30 to 11:30. I believe you had mentioned that last meeting.
Yep.
Friendly reminder, it's this week.
Public Works Building right across the street here, on the corner of 4th and Gorman.
Yep.
What is that, the southwest corner?
Get in line early.
All right, any other?
Yeah.
have
Get in
something?
line early or very late.
Well, if you're very late, you might not get served.
Oh, that's true.
Want to get through twice, you gotta
Yeah,
get
you
there
will.
pretty early in the morning.
All right, any other business? I just had one item. All of council received a email from our administrative assistant, Administrator Ms. Peterson, of a draft that I put together that she cleaned up and did my bad grammar, punctuation and stuff for the Met Council. Is there, have you read that? Is council okay with that? Can we put that out as from the council?
I've not had an opportunity to review that yet,
Well,
but I'll respond to.
have you read it?
I skimmed through it, but didn't really.
Okay. Well, if you want to read that, you know, there's concern on both sides of the aisle, as I said, and there's concern with multiple counties and multiple cities on some of the initiatives that the Met Council is taking that basically they're outside their existing authority. So that message is pretty clear from a lot of different folks, both sides. So, and that's what I was conveying in that draft. So if you want to take a look at that and let me know if that's something that's okay coming from council, or if you would like it to just be from myself.
Will do.
I'd like to point out, other cities have done that.
Absolutely,
Yes,
yes.
we won't be the first, and it's not going to be any.
No,
Yeah.
not at all. But I'd like, you know,
Everybody take a look.
I'd like to know one way or the other if it's going to be from Matt Lehman as with a disclaimer, doesn't represent the Shakopee City Council, or if this is coming from the city
The whole
council.
body, yep. Got it.
And some cities have chosen to issue their own policies, positions, and others are falling under scale or the county or relying on other means.
Or their
So
plates.
it's-
Yep.
right,
And I-
everyone's taking their own.
My draft isn't specifically to policy. It points out areas of where clearly this is outside their authority.
Sure. And I think we're a large enough city to issue our own versus following under scale. I think if we were smaller, we'd go under that, but I think we're big enough to do our own. So.
And what I drafted was consistent with both scales and the other cities, so. All right, let staff know.
Thank you.
Anything else? What's the wishes of council?
With that said, I will make a motion to adjourn to Wednesday, November 6th, 2024 at 7 p.m.
Is there a second?
Second.
None on the motion? Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned. 9.